Hello everyone and welcome back to another Figurehead Reviews video, and today we are taking a look at the Marvel Legends Yelena Belova from the Crimson Dynamo Build-A-Figure wave. Here we have Yelena displayed in the front window with her accessories as well as the torso for the Crimson Dynamo Build-A-Figure. And then down at the bottom we can see the Black Widow movie logo, and then of course Yelena Belova, her name just below that. And then on the side we do have some artwork there of Yelena just kind of looking off at us, a little bit off to the side. And that is going to be the same artwork on both sides. On the back we do have that shot just expanded upon, and then we do have a very brief read-up. A product of the Red Room's ruthless training program, Yelena Belova is a fiery assassin. Then we do have all the other figures needed in this wave to complete the Crimson Dynamo Build-A-Figure. And at the very bottom we do have the UPC code, so you can check with your local retailer to see if they have this in stock. But enough about that, let's get this open and take a look at Yelena Belova. And here is Yelena outside of her packaging, and unfortunately, much like Taskmaster, we don't really know much about the MCU version of this character simply due to the delay in the movie's release. Now, in one of the trailers, though, Black Widow does call her Sis. Now, in the comic books, they are not sisters. No real reason to think that in the movies they're going to be sisters either. Of course, they had very similar upbringing, and they're training in the Red Room and things like that, which make them more, sisters in experience versus sisters in blood. So that's going to be my guess. The figure itself is not terrible. I do have some gripes, though, that we will certainly cover here when we get the closer looks. Now, Yelena does come with some accessories. She comes with two of these small pistols, and I have no idea what these are, so leave a comment down below if you know what kind of gun these are, but they're sculpted pretty decently. They're realistic-looking weapons, which is great, especially for an MCU character. No sci-fi weapons or anything like that, and they are identical to each other. And then the pistol is going to fit right into the holster that she has on her right leg, but she only has holster for one of them. So the assumption being that she's going to basically have one drawn and one in the holster. And then she is going to come with a few sets of hands. So first, she is going to have a pair of fisted hands for some hand-to-hand combat, which I'm happy to get. And then she is going to come with a pair of gun-holding hands with trigger finger. Now, when standing straight up, Yelena is coming in at 6 inches tall, which makes her about 15.2 centimeters. So being a female figure, it's not surprising she's a little bit on the shorter side. But since she doesn't come with any additional accessories other than her Build-A-Figure piece, which we'll look at a later time, let's go ahead and jump in here and get a look at the sculpt and paintwork on Yelena. And getting up close, we can see a pretty well done head sculpt. Paint looks pretty simplistic, and of course with these MCU face sculpts we always have that digital paint style where it's just the dots and whatnot. So from a distance it looks great, but when you get up close like this, yeah, it gets pretty weird looking, but really well done. And I feel like this actress has a pretty slender head shape, and that really comes through here in the sculpt work. So I do like that quite a bit. I did notice in the package even that she had this little splotch there on her cheek, which I thought maybe was a beauty mark or something, so I had to look up the actress. Looks like that is just a splotch of paint on mine, so that shouldn't be there. I don't know if I'll leave it or if I'll actually bother trying to get it off. Looking at the hair, we can see that in order to kick ass, you have to have it put up in some pretty tight braids there, and it looks really good, actually. I do like that. And you get some wash over it there just to give it a little bit more character, but it's well done, so not bad. Looking at her neck, though, it feels like maybe it's a little too long. I don't know, what do you think? The head does seem to like it sits up kind of high, and you'll notice we don't have the standard disc hinge on here. Instead, we get that dumbbell, and that does make for some weird scenarios where, looking off to the side, you get a gap, looking down, you get a gap. So I don't know how I feel about that. It's less in terms of like limiting the articulation, more just in terms of looking kind of odd. So, and then like I said, it does kind of look like a long neck. Looking at the body armor here that she has, so the top of the chest or the torso looks fine. You get some little paint details there, like the silver. We get the dark green and black, and then just the dark green on the back there with, it looks like a little bit of like marbling or something there, I guess. Almost looks like there's little cracks in the plastic. Not too bad, though. I'm not going to be looking at the back of the figure too often, so. Going down to the lower torso, though, so we can see that the lower torso most likely is cast in white, and that really is bleeding through in a lot of little pockets there. We even get like light green there. Yeah, not the best look there, unfortunately. So, I mean, it's not a bad design, but yeah, the paint applications definitely could have been better. It makes me wonder, well, I guess, yeah, the lower torso is this entire piece since there's no waist cut, so you do have a lot of white, and I know white seems like it's pretty hard to paint, so that does make sense that they would cast it in white instead. And then looking at the arms, we can see the body armor again. Not too shabby looking, nothing crazy. She does have similar gauntlets to Black Widow. I'm sure that's going to be referenced in the movie as something that they get from the Red Room or something along those lines. So that is not bad. And then with the fisted hand, we can see just the fingerless gloves. Otherwise looks good. And I love that we got a pair of fisted hands so that we can do some hand-to-hand stuff. And then with the trigger hands, I love it. We get that ulnar and radial articulation that I love for weapon-holding hands. Now, looking at her belt, we can see that she has the Black Widow-style design, which, again, I'm sure is a reference to something from the Red Room, and it looks really good. Now, with this belt, though, you're going to have it pop up if you move the legs, so that is kind of odd. It doesn't really hinder the articulation on the rest of it, but yeah, it pops up if you do that. And then just another quick look there at the holster with the gun in it. Nothing too bad there. And on this side, we do see some knives, again with that Widow logo. It would have been kind of cool if we would have had some paint in there, maybe even on the handles, actually. Look at that. We got the Widow logo on the handles, too. Yeah, that's pretty cool looking. And then just the piece that goes around the legs, yeah, not bad looking. And then going down the legs with that body armor again, knee pads and things like that. Yeah, not bad. Now, I don't know, I want to see if it's showing up on here. I'll have to see it in post. But the figure seemed like it was a little bit dirty right out of the package. It had nothing to do with, like, I wash my hands before any time I do these reviews just to make sure that I don't get, like, oils or dirt or anything from the things I've been doing. And I don't think it's really coming through on the camera, but it did just look like there was a little tinge of dirt. And then one other thing I did forget to point out was right there, that little bit of a gap there at this thigh joint, just from it not being completely flush, and even a little bit of a gap there too. So that is a little bit disappointing. But not too bad there on the sculpt and everything. Now, looking at the articulation, so I kind of went over the head with as far as the gaps and things like that. She can look up, not much, and then look down a little bit. And then because it is that dumbbell, you do have some back and forth there, and you even get some tilting out of it as well. You have arms that can come up at a full 90 degree, full rotation. She does have a single hinge joint. Oh yeah, never mind. She does have, I didn't think she had rotation at the elbow, but she does. But even with that single hinge, we at least get a really deep elbow there. Like, that's greater than 90 degrees. So even though it's not double jointed, that's actually not bad. That's a good start. And then, as I mentioned, we get that ulnar and radial type of hinge there on the weapon holding hands. Then you get your standard flexion and extension hinge on the wrist for the fisted hands. You do have a diaphragm joint that can go all the way around. You can crunch forward, not too bad. It does kind of break up the sculpt in the back there. And then you can go back quite a ways, but we can see again the articulation, or rather the sculpt work, does stop there. So, And then we mentioned the legs going far up, but that belt's going to pop up. They can kick forward, not much at all. And in addition, be careful, because I actually kind of cut into my leg joint there when I was doing some articulation. So just be cautious. It can go back. Nope, not at all. You do have that thigh cut, but you might have to readjust the belt if you use it too much, because as you turn it, you can see it's going to pull that with it. You have a double jointed knee. You do not have a boot cut, even though it looks like the boot is a separate piece. And then you do have a hinge that doesn't go very far forward, and ankle pivot. And that is going to do it for this review, everyone. So, overall, not a bad figure. I mean, of course, Yelena has gone by the name Black Widow in the comic books. So, given that she has some of these logos on her belt and on the knives, I would imagine that is going to be the case in the MCU movie as well, that she is either going to already have the name Black Widow, or maybe we get like an end credit scene where she sees the rest of the Avengers after Scarlett Johansson's Black Widow death, and maybe this is our new MCU Black Widow. I mean, it's certainly a possibility. But not a bad-looking figure. The neck I'm still not so sure on, and just the paint there at the torso are probably my biggest gripes. Now, one thing that I didn't really mention before, she kind of has a hard time standing up on her own. I've been using one of these NECA stands for quite a few of the poses. If I messed around with it more, I'm sure I could get her to stand, but the joints in her ankles seem to be so stiff that they want to pop to one of the ratcheted spots, and sometimes those ratcheted spots aren't necessarily where I need her to be for proper balance. But thankfully the pegs in the bottom do fit in just fine if I end up having to use a stand. So much like any other MCU figure though, if you're not collecting MCU figures, you're probably not going to get this. And the Black Widow movie certainly feels more like it's going to be a standalone film than it is going to be sort of the bigger overarching MCU, unless, like I said, maybe this is going to be our new Black Widow in some of the post-Endgame style movies. So maybe getting this version of Yelena is something that people will want. But yeah, that is pretty much it for this review. So, I mean, overall, an average figure. You know, nothing too crazy. I do like how deep the elbows go, though, for being a single jointed elbow. That is actually really refreshing to see a female character with elbows that can go pretty deep. And I love that we get that ulnar and radial articulation. That's always my preferred articulation. But I'm rambling now, so that is it for this review. Make sure to leave a comment down below. Let me know your thoughts on this figure. Make sure to hit that thumbs up if you like this review. And aside from that, make sure to subscribe for more content just like this. There we go. And then aside from that, thank you for watching my videos, and have a great day.